Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by those fine members over at grandtheftworld.com. You can click the little blue button at the top right corner. It says join community. Check out the levels. We got a lot. All right. So this week, there's crazy news this week. So what do we got to start with? Bribing Biden. Joe Bribin. What's his name? Remember when he said at the CFR with Rhodes Scholar Richard Haas, he said, son of a bitch, we got him fired. It was some bribery scandal going on over there. Like, he didn't make a big deal of it. He said it out loud. Well, apparently he said a lot of things out loud, and there's new stories coming out this week. There were 17 phone calls recorded with Joe Bribin, and it's the Ukraine thing melting down. So look to the sky, look to the aliens. We'll get to that in a second.
Foreign national who accuses President Joe Biden and his son Hunter of taking bribes is in the possession of apparently damning audio recordings of his conversations with the Bidens. This, according to Senate Republican Chuck Grassley, who delivered the news on the floor yesterday evening. Let's watch.
The 1023 produced to the House committees redacted reference that the foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17 such recordings. According to the 1023, the foreign national possesses 15 audio recordings of phone calls between him and Hunter Biden. According to the 1023, the foreign national possesses 2 audio recordings of phone calls between him and then Vice President Joe Biden. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot.
Meanwhile, podcaster Joe Rogan recently went scorched earth on the Biden family, calling the president a corrupt career politician. Let's watch.
All the stuff with his son and the ties to Ukraine and China and the money, the family, they got paid millions of dollars, and everyone's trying to obscure it because, well, it's better than Trump. If that guy was a Republican, they would be up his with a microscope.
I know, it is unbelievable.
But he represents what they thought was like a sane alternative to what President Trump was.
Yeah.
They thought, this is insane. Donald Trump is the president. That. Anything's better than him. And so they went with this corrupt career politician.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wild stuff, man. They even got the FBI involved in telling Twitter to censor the information about the laptop. It's crazy.
And next story up. Amazon Smart Home. You got your Alexa, you got your Echo, you got these things around, and they're listening to you. They're helpful. Lock and unlock your house. Well, Amazon, some driver came up to the house, said he heard some curse words, some racist stuff, makes a phone call, shuts the whole house down, locks the man out of the house. And then there's a separate story where a guy gave autonomous control to his AI to run his house, and he had to smack it down and kill it. And it was not pretty. So these sort of things are becoming a reality that people have to deal with. We're going to look into some of these stories on the technology emerging around this. And is it friend or foe? Is it to help us increase or reduce us in some way, shape, or form? Control us, maybe.
An almost private social credit score system where at any time, for any reason, your ability to exist as a normal human being in 2023 can just be cut off for wrongthink or even alleged wrongthink. The latest example is so crazy, it is almost difficult to even wrap your head around. It revolves around a Baltimore man's recent experience with Amazon. Brandon Jackson, he's a Baltimore resident who on May 25th found himself in a weird predicament. He couldn't log in to his Amazon account. And it wasn't just a nuisance. The issue was his Amazon account was linked to his smart home devices. It was run by the Alexa system. No Amazon, no smart home. So he did some digging. It appeared he had received an email the day before from Amazon from an executive asking him to call the company. He was mystified. Since when do you need to call Amazon? It almost seemed like a prank or a phishing scam. After he gets on the phone with the Amazon executive, he discovers the delivery driver of a package on a day before reported hearing a, quote, racist remark as he dropped his package off at Jackson's home. Now, it's important to understand a few things here. Number one, Jackson himself is a black man. Number two, he was living in a Baltimore neighborhood, also predominantly black. Number three, most important of all, Jackson was literally not at home, nor was anyone else in his household at the time of the delivery and alleged incident. Luckily, he was actually able to gain access through a third party to his smart home doorbell footage, and he verified that the automated response after delivery driver rang the bell was, quote, "Excuse me, can I help you?" The driver reported the remark, was also wearing headphones at the time of the incident. Jackson believed that he somehow had misheard it while wearing those headphones. Jackson compiled multiple video angles from directions to verify nothing had occurred, and he submitted this evidence to Amazon. But he had to wait days before his account was restored. All of this was verified by YouTuber Luis Rossmann. Now, the company did not even apologize to him. They did not acknowledge any fault, quite literally rendering his entire system useless that he used to run his home. Now, I know that people out there who can't even get into their house without Alexa or can't even use their TV. What would they do? And for what? The guy didn't say anything. The moronic delivery driver misheard an automated remark. Does that mean from now on, all of us are literally at the mercy of hearing an Amazon delivery driver what they might or may not hear, onto whether our account can exist or not?
Trump indictment. There's a good story this week from Tucker. He's blasting it out on Twitter using his First Amendment. He has a cease and desist from Fox, and yet he's been very outspoken and has garnered several 100 million views on his videos in just the last couple of weeks, which is something that Fox, MSNBC, CNN, all the other alphabet agencies wish they could do on any given day. He has a mouthpiece. He has a megaphone. He has a platform. He has people willing to listen, and he has damn good monologues. So we're going to check out his dismantling of this Trump indictment story.
So Tucker Carlson is going to let you know why Trump was indicted. So we all know Trump got indicted. It's, again, the most garbage of garbage things. It's about he didn't handle classified documents correctly.
By the way, for what I understand, taking home classified documents is basically the same as taking home a stapler.
Yeah,
at this point,
they all do it. A and B. By the way, he's the guy who determines what's classified and what's not. So, do you know what I mean?
Right.
There's nobody higher than anyway. So so Tucker Carlson's going to tell you. So he did another monologue. It's Tucker Carlson's third show on Twitter, and I'm just going to show you the last couple of minutes. And this is what it's really all about.
But what about voters? What are they learning from this spectacle? Well, mostly they're learning that they have no power at all because nobody cares about them. But they already knew that. Unlike so many of our elected leaders, they have been to America recently. They know what it looks like. Have you seen it? If you've got a few days this summer, find out. Take a road trip and see for yourself. Drive 500 miles in any direction and then come home. How are things looking? Well, they should look great. The federal government spent $6.5 trillion last year. That's more than any government has ever spent, ever. So at the very least, you would expect pristine public roads. Oh, no. That's not what you see when you drive around this country. There are potholes and Jersey barriers everywhere. Looks like Tegucigalpa before the Chinese decided to rebuild the infrastructure of Honduras. We don't have China buying our roads.
So the point that Tucker's making right now is that our government is so corrupted that we're ending the way all empires end. We're spending all this money on nothing, meaning it's just going right to corruption. And that's what it is. The CARES Act was nothing but corruption. That was a $5 trillion corruption package that Bernie Sanders and all the Democrats said was good for you, and they all lied. And what he's pointing this out, that we're not even, our country is crumbling underneath us. Our infrastructure is crumbling as we're sending hundreds of billions of dollars to corrupt countries. We're spending all kinds of money, but we're not spending it on us. And you know who else made that point? The guy who was just on this show, Chris Hedges, in his book called America, the Farewell Tour. He documents the hollowing out of America's infrastructure in our cities because of neoliberalism, capitalism. Well, Tucker Carlson is onto that too. Now he knows that the government is completely corrupted and that we're spending all our money on empire and none of it on our own people. And that's the point he just made. But the bigger point is that everybody in the news business is on board for that agenda. And he's the only one pushing back, which is why he got fired. He's got a little bit more to say.
So they're falling apart. You'd think the people you would pass on your road trip would look happy and prosperous. Again, this is a very rich country. But a lot of them don't. Quite a few appear to be strung out on drugs. You see them shuffling by shuttered storefronts in small towns. And you wonder, as you see all of this, where did all the money go? It's certainly not here. Well, it's in Washington. It's in Fairfax and Loudoun counties, and in leafy, perfectly manicured Northwest D.C. And of course, a huge chunk of it went to Ukraine, to Zelensky and his friends. Not because you voted for that. You didn't vote to give it to them. You never would. But because Joe Biden and his many allies, from Chuck Schumer to Mitch McConnell to Paul Ryan and every single news anchor on all of television, all of them believe that Ukraine, its borders, its future, its infrastructure are all more important than the town that you live in. They sincerely think that, and it's obvious. Everyone in power thinks that.
Everyone in power thinks Ukraine is more important than fixing homelessness in America, or fixing a bridge in America, or getting a living wage in America, or getting free college in America, or ending student debt in America, or anything in America. Why? Because they're not there to serve you. They're there to serve their corporate donors, which is why we live in a completely 100% corrupted country, which is why that military budget that's $1 trillion is $1 trillion of complete corruption.
And then, the UFOs. We couldn't leave them out. They got some stories out there. So there's a lot of whistleblower testimony. There was a couple interesting ones pertaining to the black ops and the private companies and the contractors that are outside government control. I haven't seen any evidence of aliens yet, but there is definitely emerging technology they've been working on, black budget technology, national security technology that they've kept away from people, and they might be showing it off or deciding to distract you by getting you to look up instead of looking at your the price of bread and milk this week.
I want to talk to you a bit about this UFO. This UFO that was sighted. That's half the size of a football field. I mean, are the dimensions particularly relevant? What is it about? Once you've got UFOs, it could be the size of a matchbox. Who cares? It's from space, baby, or even better, another dimension. What do you think about the that UFO spotted by, I believe it was U.S. Marines?
Yeah, so that's an open investigation. So usually I'll obtain and release footage that's, from military assets, that kind of thing. This was different. I had about 50 Marines plus that saw something that they didn't know what it was. And the reporting system was so broken, they started coming to me. And this was, when it first happened, like 2 years ago. And I was trying to figure out for them, what did they see? So there was only this one little image I was given. So what I did over that time was a bunch of interviews, human intelligence, just trying to figure out what they saw. But then, bam, 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 I started getting photos and images. We couldn't get any further, but we had like 50 Marines telling us they think they saw a football size or half a football size craft, which is not unusual to have unknown vehicles over military bases. We now know that because of documents. So we jumped in, George Knapp and I, we started collecting the information. We put it out to the public. This was a new thing to try to crowdsource. Can you help us figure out? It's an open case, and there's more information we're going to be providing. But look, this idea that we're getting not just witnesses saying it, but we're getting photos, videos, radar, that kind of thing. So this is just one of those many open cases. But now the Department of Defense has an acknowledged UFO study program. And they're looking into all of these cases. They have 800 that are unresolved right now. The problem is, can we trust them? So the whistleblowers that have come forward to me, that have worked on these programs, they're trying to get a bead on, like, can we give this through to the government and get actual answers? Or are they going to try to obfuscate, which has been the history of our government with UFOs for almost 90 years? I mean, it's crazy.
Also, COVID. They're really starting to lift the veil. You're starting to see behind the scenes. You're starting to see the wizards behind the curtain. One of those wizards this past week was Pfizer, in a story where they've been paying Anderson Cooper like over $10 million, $12 million, $15 million. It was a lot of money. Probably not to Anderson Cooper, who's the heir to the Vanderbilt fortune, but to most people, that's a lot of money. It was enough to get him to say whatever they wanted him to say, like he's a puppet. And those who took health advice from CNN, you got to learn that lesson, I guess, some point.
Hey, shocker, everybody. Big Pfizer owns the cable news hosts.
What?
Yeah, Pfizer caught funneling $12 million to Anderson Cooper to promote the mRNA vaccines to America. Pfizer has funneled a whopping $12 million into the bank accounts of CNN host Anderson Cooper as part of a deal to promote the company's mRNA jabs to the American public. They say they're toxic, but Kurt, you and I know the vaccines are safe and effective.
Yeah,
and
they slow the spread of hospitals being clogged up with horse-based victims.
Right. They're very safe. So that I don't. People went blind. According to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., very few people are aware of the fact that Cooper gets the majority of his CNN paycheck from Pfizer.
I wasn't aware of that.
I wasn't aware of that. 80% of Cooper's $12 million annual salary, roughly $10 million of it, comes directly from Pfizer, and that's according to RFK Jr. And he's worth every penny.
You couldn't get finer.
You couldn't get finer representation for your product. Anderson Cooper has a $12 million a year salary, Kennedy revealed during the segment. Well, $10 million of that is coming from Pfizer. So his boss is not CNN, his boss is Pfizer. And they're unashamed about it. They're unabashed about it. They say on his program, brought to you by Pfizer. Of course, he's not going to tell you the truth about Pfizer's products. He's going to try to sell it to you. He's going to try to scare the hell out of you, saying, if you don't take this, you're going to die. But just imagine what Rachel Maddow gets paid from Raytheon.
Yeah.
If that's what he's getting. And by the way, I'm getting really afraid that RFK Jr., if he doesn't stop telling the truth, he's going to die.
Happy Father's Day to the fathers out there in the audience. And we're going to kick it off this week from Luke with Luke Radowski from wearechange.org and thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Hang in there. We got a heck of a show planned tonight, and it's going to get started right now.
One of the things that we're not hearing a lot about is the unique potential safety problem of.
And then something changed.
Any released by emergency use authorization by the FDA is an outstanding.
J&J is a risk of life-threatening blood clots.
When you hear the beep, that's the sound of safety.
So don't overthink it. They're both really good. They're all really good. Get it now.
You gotta call now.
If you wait, it's going to be really too late to protect your child.
If this was your child, what happens next could make it the worst day of your life.
So even though poses zero threat to healthy children,
your children.
Do the right thing. Be safe and not sorry.
I'm strongly recommending for adolescents to get their 2 doses of fully immunized after those 2 doses.
Advanced technology that can help save lives.
This is going to be a long-lasting.
What an absolute hack of a doctor and medical professional.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions. We can get into the show and share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghost written. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man.